Alright, Adept, please take note. It seems the flesh was stripped from a 20-degree angle to ensure that the... Adept, for the love of the Emperor, please don't release your stomach contents on the crime scene. The Pelennite enforcers would definitely not appreciate it. Plus, I know for a fact you have seen dismembered bodies before. The aftermath of that gang fight last week was particularly brutal. Ah, it's the fact that we're partially eaten. Understandable. That does add a little bit of unpleasantness to the matter. Well, that's something you'll have to deal with when facing the target of our investigations. These cultists tend to enjoy a bit of fresh meat. Alright, take a seat. Yes, on the chair. I know it has blood on it, but considering the floor is covered with human organs, it is technically the cleanest sitting position. Now what I'm about to tell you is in the strictest confidence, so if I hear you blabbering any of this in a drunken rant, what you've seen done to these hivers here will seem like a pleasant dream compared to what I will do to you. Now listen carefully as I tell you of the corpse grinder cults.
The corpse grinder cults.
Throw down your arms. Resist the Lord of Skin and Sinew no longer. Topple the bloated edifice you serve and feast on its innards. Our Lord blesses those who revel in his bountiful offerings. Like many hive planets across the Imperium, Necromunda has many types of heretical cults wishing to bring ruination upon Imperial citizens. Gatherings of cultists trying to spread the corruptive message of their dark gods on the weak-willed and desperate. A commodity sadly always in stock in the oppressive bowels of the hive. But there is one particularly stubborn cult that is rather unique to Necromunda. The corpse grinder cults. Now that ration bar you ate this morning, did you ever ask yourself where its ingredients came from? Of course not. You're too busy having a full belly and focusing on your work to worry about such things. That's the way it should be. You living happily in your ignorance, while your betters deal with the harsher realities of our galaxy. Sadly today, you are one of the betters, and thus you are about to learn an uncomfortable truth. Now some of those ingredients come from off-world, for the hive is far too large and too focused on industry to ever truly be self-sufficient. But a certain percentage of those ingredients is recycled material. Specifically, recycled bodies. Bodies obtained and repurposed by the Corpse Guild. In the same way that House Cawdor picks through the refuse of the hive to recycle metal and other materials, the members of the Corpse Guild take the bodies of those who die in the hive, whether through age, disease, or violence, and ensure they perform their final duty to the Emperor. Taking them to facilities that are less funeral home and more meat factory, thousands of Imperial workers rip apart their former hive mates with meat saws and bone grinders to turn them into more useful substances, reducing them into a protein-rich mash that can be shaped into whatever forms are required to make them edible to the wider hive population. Now, despite the hiver getting used to the horrors of hive life, ripping apart fellow humans day in and day out can really wear on a person's psyche. At some point, probably when they're ripping apart the corpses of a family of 4 killed in a gang fight, it's quite possible for a person to simply snap, losing their sanity and more importantly their faith in the Emperor at such brutal necessity. And it's in that moment that something dark and twisted whispers into their mind. A dark and bloody god promising the broken hiver power and freedom, if only they would partake of the bloody harvest before them. Soon enough, the person begins to eat the flesh of those they rip apart, taking little strips of meat from the assembly line, to feed their insatiable hunger behind the backs of their overseers. As the flesh strengthens and twists their bodies, the newly awoken cultist is compelled to spread the message of their god to their fellow hivers. The charismatic demagogue first corrupting their fellow workers, then nearby disaffected hivers, and soon spreading their message to entire hive blocks. This continues until the corrupted reach critical mass. Soon workers kill and consume their Corpse Guild taskmasters, while those nearby hive blocks burst into open revolt, their ultimate aim to spread their bloody message across the entire hive. To accomplish this task, the cultists have a wide variety of tools from their former profession to aid them. The same tools they used to rip apart corpses now used to rip apart their enemies. meat saws, amputators, and flensing knives used to great effect on living flesh. As for what they generally wear, they do have heavy armor of a sort, but it tends to be covered with human bones for style, and a few are known to wear aprons and other leathers made of human flesh. You would think that someone with a headdress made of a human clavicle would look ridiculous, but when they are coming at you with a giant saw, it can be quite intimidating. The lowest rank of these cultists are the Skinners, new initiates who wish to join the cult, divided further into bloodied and unbloodied. You can tell them apart rather easily. The unbloodied are the only members of the cult who use ranged weapons generally. It's only when they finally taste human flesh and become bloodied that they gain the compulsion to get up close and personal with the enemy with melee weaponry. Above them are the Cutters, the lieutenants that keep the masses of Skinners in line through fresh meat, violence, and the occasional example or two. Above them are the Butchers, those who have truly begun to be changed by the forbidden flesh they consume, bursting with muscles and hungry for violence, and all of them tied to their ultimate leader through a profane ritual, a leader known as the Harvest Lord. Do you remember that first cultist who spread the message of his or her god and started this whole mess? Well, they become the most changed, growing to proportions that would make a ganger of House Goliath jealous, and with a skill in melee most humans could never hope to match, and driven by the insatiable urge to conquer their hive. For once they do, they might finally transform into a conduit of their lord, the Lord of Skin and Sinew. As for what this Lord of Skin and Sinew is, I am unsure. It might just be a common demon of chaos, a lucky entity, taking control of an idiotic cultist once its form became suitable. But it might also be something older and much more powerful. It is said that there is a dark spirit in Necromunda, an ancient evil that has existed in the world before the first High was a twinkle in the Emperor's eye. An evil that would want nothing more than to bathe Necromunda in blood, and whispers dark secrets to any poor soul who would listen. If that's true, then there is not much we can do but continue fighting, taking down any bloody weeds it brings to bear. Because this planet is far too important to even consider something as extreme as exterminatus. What's an exterminatus? Well, Adept, let's just say that if I had the choice, I would turn this entire planet into a burnt wasteland if I ever thought I could get away with it. Either way, we have work to do. We have flesh-eating cultists to slay.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the corpse grinder cults, those murderous, cannibalistic monsters. If you like it, please like, subscribe, comment, press the little bell so you know whenever I post, etc., etc. But if you really like it, please consider sending a little money my way towards my Patreon. The extra money gives me the time I need to work on these stories that I love. Anyway, thanks for listening/watching, and see you next time.